Good morning. This is Jessica Dumas, and thank you for joining me every Friday morning, 10 a.m. for Insights Inc. And you can also find these videos on YouTube by checking out my YouTube channel, which I'll have in the link. But thank you so much for joining me. The reason I'm doing these interviews every Friday morning on Insights Inc. is because Canada is in a time of reconciliation. And we've known for years and years that the Indigenous population in Canada was having this uprise. The population is just growing. We're seeing that evidence and influence in more and more places. And I've been really blessed to start learning about my culture and connecting to my community as an adult and learning about all of these amazing cultures and so many ways that Indigenous is connected in our country and in our communities. And then throughout my journey, I've also been so lucky and very proud to be able to meet so many great and Indigenous professionals, artists, entrepreneurs, and students and really cool people. And so today what I want to do is I want to share the story and try to get some more information from some young voices. And so I've invited with me Sarah Baxter, she's going to join me right now. And I just want to say good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, a little bit tired, but I mean, that's like every Friday morning.
And you're on summer break right now as a university from Trent University, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just finished my first year. I'm taking biology over there. And yeah, I just came back to Winnipeg where I was born, just to catch up with some missed time with friends and family. I'm just calling from my dad's office. I'm working for him this summer. He owns a language company, or an app developing company, actually, called Ogoki Learning Systems. And what he does is he travels all across North America to different tribes to help revitalize their Indigenous languages.
And what are you doing there this summer?
Right now, I'm managing our communications, and I just finished designing my first game. It's called Rain Canoe for now. And yeah, it's really exciting to learn all these new amazing skills, especially coding, because it's such a valuable skill, especially in our technology-dominated society right now. And I believe that having this ability to code is going to be so helpful in my career, even though I am going into the medicine field. Still, coding is a very valuable skill that I think is so important to feature on my resume.
Absolutely. I love that you're doing that, because I was recently watching because I'm always watching webinars and stuff like that. And that's where I got the idea to start doing my own webinars and interviewing people and collecting stories and really encouraging. But I was watching a webinar, and I can't remember his name, but he was talking about the future of our workplaces. And a lot of it was surrounding technology. And I was really interested in this because, like I mentioned, the fastest growing population in the Indigenous communities, but that's one of the biggest well, I shouldn't say one of the biggest, it's an important lack of access that First Nation communities have, right? On top of housing and health and other things that we'll even talk about today, but technology is a really big one. So that's so cool. You're in medicine and here you are practicing coding. But yeah, great skills.
Yeah, even though there is a lack of accessible technology in the northern communities especially, there are efforts being made to incorporate more technology into the schools, such as through funding and everything, because all of the applications that my dad designs are made to run without the internet. So I know that the internet is less accessible up north. So my dad took that into account when he was designing his apps, so that the children in these communities are able to learn their most valuable native language anywhere on their reserve or anywhere in Canada, really.
Fabulous.
because also language revitalization is a huge part in our reconciliation in Canada, as it is part of the calls to action. Because of the traumatizing impact that the residential schools have had. And I think it's really important for people to really recognize how important it is to not only incorporate language into our daily lives, but using technology to make these more accessible, to make these resources more accessible. Since kids are so surrounded by technology, the new generation is constantly being influenced by our use of technology. So my dad thought it was a really unique idea to incorporate the language learning into the, I guess, the impact, or yeah.
Fantastic. Like this, I'm already excited. And I also wanted to share, I shared before we went live, but so Sarah, her mom and I are really good friends. And so I've been hearing about Sarah's transition from a Winnipeg student going to Trent University and what, so I'm curious, like, what is that like as a young person? I never had the opportunity to go away to university, especially at 18. So what has that transition been like for you?
The transition has been very different. Winnipeg city life is totally different. When I compare it to the small Ontario city that I'm living in now, it's just like a little village compared to Winnipeg. But I think definitely the hugest impact that was made in this whole process of moving and everything was my connection with my family. But thankfully through technology, it's easier than ever to maintain connection with your long distance family members. But yeah, I would say that would be the, I guess the toughest obstacle that I would have to overcome. And there were even weeks where I would just find myself in my dorm just so alone. And I would consider transferring back to Winnipeg. But then I just realized the how great of an opportunity it is to be able to like leave my my city. Even though Winnipeg is a great place, I feel like moving out provided me with the most raw experience of adulthood, especially. And yeah, not only that, but the education shift, shifting from high school education to university level education was, I wouldn't say it was the toughest obstacle, but it was definitely a huge difference because I realized that university life is completely independent and everything is reliant on yourself. There's no one exactly around to tell you to go do your homework or go to classes. So yeah, you really have to adjust to, I guess, setting your own schedule and everything. But I believe that I had an easier transition because I took an advanced academic program in high school. I joined the International Baccalaureate program, and that's very similar to AP or advanced placement in the United States. So I went for my advanced diploma because I wanted to prove to, I guess, Canada, I just wanted to be that representation for Indigenous youth, that we are capable of attaining huge academic milestones, such as earning my advanced diploma. And that inspired me. I think the huge turning point for me was when I learned about this program in grade 7. And of course, being a little Indigenous girl, growing up in a Winnipeg school system, you don't really get encouraged to achieve the same big dreams as your other students, as your other peers, I mean. For example, in grade 9, at the end of the year before my grade 9 math exam, I went up to my teacher and I asked him if he said, or I asked him if he believed I could do the advanced math program in our high school. And he didn't necessarily like say I couldn't, but I could definitely hear in his tone of voice that he definitely did not believe that I could do it. And usually for a lot of teenagers, like I was just a 14-year-old insecure little girl. For most girls, I believe that that would completely shut down their confidence.
Definitely.
But for me, I think having this Indigenous heritage as part of my identity is such a huge influencer of my life, actions and decisions and everything. So hearing my teacher tell me that I couldn't do it just fueled my motivation even more to achieve my big dreams of becoming a doctor and everything.
Good for you.
Not in a totally like self-righteous kind of way in that like, oh, I did this and you didn't. More so I feel like I'm representing Indigenous youth in Canada, and I want to be that role model and that change for Indigenous youth to achieve their dreams and to achieve higher academic goals and everything, such as going for advanced programming, or advanced classes and things like that. Especially on the reservations, their lack of education, or quality education, is a huge issue in the northern communities especially. And I think that me being able to have this opportunity to have advanced education or an advanced diploma stream available for me, I feel like that was a huge opportunity for me as an urban off-res student. So I felt like it was almost like my duty to kind of represent Indigenous youth and also encourage them to shoot for higher and bigger goals.
That's so beautiful. You're making me so proud. I'm so proud of you. You have so much courage. And I can tell because we haven't met. And so to anyone watching, our families have known each other for years and we've seen each other. But this is our first real conversation, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed because you're doing what that huge responsibility is for Indigenous youth right now and for Indigenous women.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm very inspired just by hearing you. And I'm thinking about the knowledge that you're gaining through biology and your coding. And I can just imagine where you're going to be in a couple of years. You're going to do amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah. So, and then I also wanted to share this story that I think is really cute. So I bumped into you at a friend's place last week, which after I invited you to come on the webinar, and you had a textbook with you. I don't know if it was a textbook or just a learning book. And you started talking about the body, and you said the immune system, and you put your hand on your heart, and you said my favorite. You like passionately said that.
Yeah.
So, about that, because you love it.
Yeah, I think about the human body almost every hour of my living life. I just think it's so interesting, and I think that like it's such a blessing that the Creator showed me my purpose in life so early in my youth, and just that passion for the human body as well as Indigenous activism. Like those are two totally different fields of education and life in general. But I think that it is possible to bring Indigenous issues and healthcare both merged into one I don't know, I guess, issue. And yeah, my passion for the human body definitely encourages me, or I mean, not passion for human body, my huge interest in human body definitely helps when I'm studying for my classes, because just the classes that I enrolled myself in, I enjoyed so much, and I enjoyed studying for them so much that I studied for fun most of the time. And exactly the reason why I bought that textbook is because, of course, all of my textbooks are in Ontario. And I think about the human body every single second. I think about all the functions and everything. And sometimes I'm not too sure if I'm right or I'm wrong. And of course, there's always Google, but I mean, that takes a lot of effort to research.
Do you hear that, people?
So I bought that textbook just to, I guess, reinforce my knowledge throughout the summer, because, yeah, I think the human body is just so interesting.
That's fascinating. That's, you know what, like for me, I'm not the best studier. I like to do things, and I like to see results, and I like to, you know, do really quick projects that I'm very engaged in. And I mean, there's things that, yeah, sure, I like to read and learn. I love learning. But yeah, I mean, to see a young woman, you know, running out and loving a study book, I'm like, wow, this is going to be like, this is a brilliant girl. So
thank you.
So talk a little bit about activism. So on your Facebook profile, and, you know, before I approached you, and this is what I do, I, you know, go on everyone's social media accounts, and it said activist and future doctor. So future doctor, I can see, right? I know that's your path. So tell me a little bit more about activism for you.
For me, activism isn't necessarily just an event that you plan like for 2 months and it happens and it just passes by. For me, activism, I try to incorporate it into my mindset and into my daily life and into my daily actions. For example, I don't have an example, sorry.
That's okay.
But I mean, I try to, I guess, show that not only am I proud to be Indigenous, but I try to present my viewpoints when we are discussing discussions in class and everything. So for me, being an activist means having these kinds of discussions with people who are both like crowds of people who both contain Indigenous as well as non-Indigenous people. Like for me right now, I think a way of being an activist is talking with my friends, even my non-Indigenous friends and my Indigenous friends, about reconciliation and what we can do as a nation to move towards that, even if it's just something as little as changing your stereotypes about Indigenous people. So yeah, I believe that having those like just little daily actions really influences your mindset. And then I think that having those conversations and getting those insights from people of different backgrounds really builds my knowledge, as well as I'm giving the knowledge of my experiences as an Indigenous woman. I'm giving that back to people, and I'm sharing that with people, and I'm sharing my knowledge and the lessons that I've learned from experiencing life as an Indigenous woman. So I think just living your truth and living your, I guess, being proud of your heritage and your identity and really sticking to your beliefs is definitely a huge part of activism. But like I said before I started going on a rant about that, I said that activism isn't just something that you plan for an event 2 months in advance or something. I have planned events for activism, I guess. for example, in high school, in my grade 12 year, I organized a 24-hour famine at my school, and we raised well over $1,200, I think. And all that money went directly towards an organization called GO. GO stands for Growing Opportunities International. And I met with the CEO of that organization, and I planned what would be the best way to raise awareness about world hunger to these just urban children in high school. So I organized the 24-hour famine in order to raise money and increase awareness for that. So that's one part of activism. And also in high school, I was the student liaison for Indigenous students. So we would meet every Wednesday at lunch or something, and then we would discuss Indigenous issues. We would work on projects such as a mural that we were building for the school's cafeteria. I'm not sure if that is still going up. Hopefully it is, because we worked really hard on that mural. And just last year, we established a student, an Indigenous student lounge in our school. And I think that's a huge step towards not only encouraging Indigenous students and giving them a safe place to study and to interact with each other, just to make sure that they're not alone in this adventure. Because I went to a very Caucasian-dominated school, so I was like that one brown kid in my class. And I think that establishing that student center for Aboriginal kids was such a huge step towards this idea of reconciliation. And I think that the hugest influence was the support that I got from this one particular teacher. He was also the guidance counselor as well as my psychology teacher. So I saw him pretty often, and we talked every day about what we can do in our community to help support these Aboriginal students, because they are so important. And I think it's even more important to make sure that they know that they are important, and whatever they do is just a huge step towards helping our communities, and they are capable of making change. And even though that student center was built in my last year of high school, it was still amazing to plant that seed and just let a new legacy just grow from that.
Beautiful, Sarah. That is so impressive. You are amazing.
Thank you.
You're part of that, because you know what? It's trailblazing, right? And
exactly.
The time right now are in this era where it's especially young people like you who are saying this needs to be done and finding a great way to advocate.
Exactly.
Peacefully, encouraging, and making it happen. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see that happening in university where you're attending now? Is there anything like that?
Yes, there is a huge Native Student Association at Trent. I didn't join it this year, though they have sent me multiple invites to come, but I was just so overwhelmed by university life and adjusting to moving out of my house at 17 and being away from family at such a young age. But definitely next year I'm going to fully immerse myself in the Indigenous community over there.
No pressure. Good for you. I'm so impressed. This is such a great conversation that I'm having with you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, first of all, I wanted to share some of the work that I do, because you might not know that. So I have a online coaching program. So my coaching is done, through websites and Facebook and groups and that sort of thing. And but the other thing that I do is I'm a facilitator, and so I do a lot of team building and customer service. But more recently, and it was because of the demand that I was seeing from the business community that I'm involved in with the Winnipeg Chamber and the Aboriginal Chamber, is people wanted to know, well, what can we do about reconciliation? The calls to action have number 92 addressed to business and corporations, and how can we prepare ourselves is kind of what the business community is saying. And so I put together a one-day workshop. And it's a very popular workshop. In the morning, we do an activity called the blanket exercise. Are you familiar with that exercise?
No.
This would be something that you'd probably love to do with the students eventually. But it's a land exercise. So we put blankets all across the big room and the floor, and all the participants become the Indigenous people, and they're on Turtle Island. And so we go through a 500-year timeline and take them through what the European arrival was like, enact residential school, all that sort of thing. And so we just kind of go through a timeline, and I share some stories. And then in the afternoon, we talk about the little lost here, the treaties, the Indian Act, residential school, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And of course, throughout all of those conversations, a lot of other topics come up. And so we've got, it's really focused discussion. Here's information. Share how are you feeling? What are you thinking? That really engages the learning. And so that's kind of where I'm at with businesses. So there's a lot of people who are still learning, right? What do we need to know? And I mean, my goal with my workshop is that people will take this workshop and know or have a better opinion and an understanding of things that they hear about in the news about Indigenous or reconciliation. So one of my questions for you as a young person is, what are you hearing about when it comes to reconciliation, and what do you think about it?
I think for youth today, the information is definitely out there about reconciliation, and the PDFs of the calls to action are out there. But I think one of the major problems that we have with communicating these important messages is, I guess, motivating them to actually read the calls to action and encouraging them to follow through with them, especially because it's one thing to plan this extensive report and everything, but it's also another thing to actually put that report and all these calls to action in action. And I think as a youth, for me, because I'm so passionate about Indigenous rights and everything, I think for me, it just comes naturally to seek out that information for myself so that I can equip myself with as much knowledge as I can in order to help my people. But I think if you ask just any high school student about their opinions on the calls to action and reconciliation in general, they wouldn't really have an idea of what you're talking about exactly. I mean, of course, we do hear it on the news, but I think definitely one thing we can do to, I guess, extend this communication with our youth today would be to have presentations in schools that directly talk about reconciliation and what they can do as students as a whole to move towards actually putting these calls to action in action. But yeah, myself as an Indigenous woman, I haven't read through the full report yet, but I think that the ideas behind it all are all totally attainable. It's just the act of influencing the younger generation to educate themselves on these types of issues, as well as encouraging the people in power, as such as government officials and everything, to put these put these calls to action in action, because these are the people with real power. And last year I attended the Truth and Reconciliation conference that they had in Winnipeg. And this 25-year-old man was talking about youth and reconciliation. And he said that the systems that have been laid out for us are probably not going to change. So we have to work as a nation to work within those systems and find, I guess, like little loopholes and stuff, and just take advantage of the way the system runs, to make a change that is more in favor of Indigenous people, considering the harms and traumas that they've been through. Such as the Indian Act. Of course, that act has gone under so many changes, but there are still some, I guess, points in there that are from the 1800s, and they are totally old and don't really apply to the kind of society that we are living in today. So I think we can begin with those two groups of people because they are the hugest influencers of the way the treatment of Indigenous people is, I guess, viewed by ourselves. Because once you get the youth motivated and educated, you can begin this new wave of activists and people who are fighting for Indigenous people. And I think that is really coming forward, especially in our advancement with technology. All this information is being bounced back and forth across all different peoples. But I think the biggest thing would be to motivate these people to seek out that information. And I think the main reason why they aren't really seeking out that information is because they don't think that it impacts them as a white Caucasian or white male. They don't think that the system influences them. They don't think that Indigenous issues really impact their lifestyle or anything, but it really does. And I think that bringing that to light in these demographics is a huge impact or a huge step if we truly do want to reconcile between these two nations.
So children in government is what that's where that focus needs to be.
Yeah, I believe that.
And so for employers, and so how many more years of school do you have?
8, maybe 10.
Wow, good for you. You're brave. You're so brave. Good for you. So there are employers, and so and some of them are wondering, well, how do we hire Indigenous youth? Where do we find Indigenous youth? So tell me a little bit about the Indigenous, and maybe you don't know yet if you haven't really kind of immersed yourself or connected yourself with the Indigenous population at university, but do you have a network there already of Indigenous students that you connect with?
Yeah, I do. My roommate was Indigenous, so that was a huge asset, I guess, in my university experience. We would smudge a few times a week in our dorm, and that would really uplift my spirits. But I guess for employers, if they would like to reach out to Indigenous youth, I think that the most ideal route, I guess, would be to reach them in their schools where they are, they're so full of opportunity and so full of insight, even though they may not know it. They truly do have the power to make change in however they want. So I think that if employers do want to get in contact with Indigenous youth, I think definitely through education, that is the, I guess, easiest way. But also visiting these communities in person would not only open their eyes, but also open the children's eyes as to, like, I guess, the kinds of systems that are being presented to them, and what changes they can do themselves. And as a business, even my father's own business, he is always actively searching for Indigenous youth to hire, because these youth are the ones that are going to be leading our future, and these people are the ones that are being expected to carry on these traditions and all these teachings and everything, and these languages. So yeah, for, I guess, businesses to reach out to them. Not sure how they would go about that.
That's great advice. It's really got to be them actively, right? Building relationships, and that's what I always talk about. So when you're done your university, where do you hope to be? I mean, and that might change from now to 8 years, but as of right now, what do you hope that you're doing when you graduate? What's your dream?
I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and whenever I'm like, I feel a sense of or a lack of motivation, I just think about the day that I get my white coat, and that really motivates me. And beyond that, really visualizing my future motivates me, because when I visualize myself as a young Indigenous woman who just graduated university, maybe I'll be 30 years old by then, who knows. I really visualize myself traveling from community to community, just spreading this knowledge everywhere, as well as helping to cure my patients, obviously, as a doctor. So yeah, I can definitely see myself traveling all across Canada, helping Northern communities with their healthcare systems, and also inspiring their youth to achieve their goals, and to really go after their aspirations in life, even though they may think they can't do it. Really, anything is possible when you put your mind to it. I mean, just look at me, just a small Indigenous girl who had dreams of becoming a doctor since she was in 2nd grade, and here I am working towards my pre-med degree.
I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for your time. You have so much courage, and I'm so inspired by having this conversation with you, and I know other people are going to be inspired by hearing it. So thank you so much for being you, being open to your truth and living your truth, because I totally agree with you 100%. That's the best thing that you can do, because when you shine, you allow others around you to shine.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Sarah. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see you again soon and give you a big hug.
Yeah, for sure.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Alrighty. That was excellent. Did you love that? Oh my goodness, I loved that. She's so beautiful. So I'm totally inspired. I'm doing this every Friday. So you know what? I was going to check my YouTube channel name because I don't even know it. But my website is jessicadumas.com. You can meet me here because every Friday, okay, wait, I'm just going on YouTube as I'm sitting here. Every Friday, 10 a.m., I'm hosting these interviews. Next Friday, I'm going to be talking with Hawaka Blakey Whitecloud. He is the regional manager at In Business. So a business program. It has a lot to do with technology, and it's Indigenous business professionals mentoring Indigenous business students. Amazing program. Hawaka is originally from Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation in Manitoba. And he's got some really amazing insights that we're going to talk about, and I can't wait to hear that. So what is my YouTube channel? Jessica Dumas. Find me there, jessicadumas.com. Thank you so much. Please share this video and sign up for these webinars. Thank you so much. I'm just blessed today. Have a great weekend.